because it's Manchester United and because it's sexy and because it's football and people want to talk about it, fans are being asked to have an opinion on stuff that's all to do with morals and ethics and as I said, geopolitics, and yet political leaders and our government are under less scrutiny from it in so many ways, and that's wrong. So there's no right answer, and what I'd say is whoever takes over, just have a bit of scrutiny.
How are we doing, everyone? This, I think, should be a special conversation. I'm joined today by Nooruddean Choudry. He's a big time Charlie now. He's a published author. This is his book, Inshallah United, a story of faith and football. First of all, welcome, Noz. I'm going to call you Noz from now because you've told me I can
absolutely,
do that.
Yeah.
Mate, I appreciate you coming on today.
Thanks for having me. Yeah. It's all been a bit mad recently. Plugging the book. I feel sorry for people who follow me because like every second tweet is like just a retweet about the book. But that's what you got to do. You got to hustle. You got to sell the book. Otherwise,
how's it gone?
It's going well. You know, it's weird because up until obviously recently when the book came out, people were being dead nice and dead supportive, but hadn't read the book yet. So I was thinking that's so lovely that people are being dead supportive, but for all they know, the book is shit. So
I mean, you could save me some time if it is.
It's absolute wank. No, it's I hope it's good. I mean, I don't know whether people are just being nice, but I've had some really nice feedback where people have, and again, like it's nominally about United, but it's also like growing up and sort of all the influences I had growing up, and again, like some of the tough things that I had to sort of contend with in terms of being Asian or being Muslim or whatever. And the thing that sort of I really liked is that like a lot of the feedback has been, I've got nothing in common with you in terms of your background, in terms of sort of your race or religion or whatever, but I can still identify with sort of stuff you write in the book, and I can still it reminds me of when I was a kid, and it reminds me of what I felt like when I was getting excited about football, and that's lovely. That's exactly the kind of feedback I'd want, because the thing is, if I made it totally about football, there's loads of books out there. There's loads of books about United. There's loads of books charting like Ferguson's era, and it goes all the way up to the end of the 90s, and obviously like what happened at the end of the 90s. So like there's loads of books on that. So the only way I could make it different, and the only way I could add value to anyone's bookshelf, was just making it more personal, which I try to do.
Yeah, Peter. Well, it's far easier to attach to something that's personal, and I think that the main premise, if I'm correct, in the book is you go on to sort of start with a prologue about how both Manchester United and being a Muslim is giving you something that you felt like you had that belonging to. Is that something I'm guessing you saw as a similarity between, not a similarity between the two, but you had a belonging to Manchester United?
Yeah, completely, and it's that thing of like you'll know as well. Like everyone goes through that stage when they're growing up and they're a teenager, and it's that time between being a kid and being an adult where you're finding out who you are and what you're all about, and you kind of discover sort of what you belong to, what you don't, what kind of person you are, the kind of people you want to hang around with, and one of the things that you really want to do is belong to a group, and that can be loads of things. It can be football, it can be football based, it can be music based, it can be fashion, it can be anything, and football, I think, above all other things, is that kind of social lubricant that sort of cuts through everything else and instantly gives you something in common with somebody else. Because music's another one, but the thing with music is as great as music is to sort of give you something to have in common with other people, it can be generational. So if you go to an Oasis concert, most people are of a certain demographic and a certain age.
Yeah.
If you go to a Stone Roses concert, if you go to if you were to go to like a Wolf Alice concert or a Dua Lipa concert, there'd be certain demographics in terms of age, whereas football spans age, football spans everything. It spans age, it spans country, culture, religion, everything. And even like you go on holiday, like if you go anywhere in the world and you've got a football top on, or you've got something to signify what team you support, even if it's a rival fan or whoever, people strike up a conversation, and
Yeah.
and that's amazing. And even if you like the amount of times I've got nothing that signifies what team I support, and people just happen to realize I'm from Manchester, they'll start talking about United. There's that whole thing like, oh, Bobby Charlton, oh, David Beckham. It's that amazing thing that connects you with people in this really kind of bizarre way.
It's a nice conversation opener, we'll call it then. But unfortunately, unfortunately, I don't know the best way to sort of phrase that conversation is the thing I mainly want to talk to you about is something a little bit of a bigger, wider conversation right now, is the takeover of Manchester United, because for me, it's a massive, wait, for everybody, it's one of these most significant things that will happen in the modern history of our club. And the thing that I've struggled with all along. So when we were first linked with a takeover from a Middle Eastern state, I had an interview with Nicholas McGeehan, who works with the human rights charity Fair Square. And I said to him, and I explained to him in that podcast, I was like, when City were bought by Abu Dhabi in 2008, we as a fan base were unanimously against it, and we always have been. And then you fast forward, 15 years now, and United are staring in the face of a potential. Now, there's obviously going to be a degree of separation because Sheikh Jassim is private, blah, blah, blah. You can shape it how you want. Ultimately, nobody inside Qatar spends $5 billion without the Emir going, yeah, right. Yeah, you can do that. So there will be a degree of separation, but ultimately it's going to be close. I wanted to sort of speak to you about Manchester United is more than just a football club. It is a cultural institution. Look, United People's TV is a community into itself, but we exist because Manchester United exists, and there's so many other communities like it around the world. So I thought there'd be nobody better to speak to about the sort of cultural importance of Manchester United. I'd like to sort of get your take on how do you address the questions around Qatar, because you can't just bury your head in the sand and go, oh, look, we can sign Mbappe. Oh, that's great. Wicked. How do you approach it?
I mean, it's so hard to navigate because, like you say, it does divide the fan base, and I think anyone who goes on telly or is interviewed on anything and claims to speak for the Manchester United fan base as one block, it's slightly disingenuous, because that's impossible to do. Like, that's an impossible task, because it's such a disparate and different and sort of spaced out community around the world, and also even within sort of geographical areas, people will have different views, different politics. Some people will be more interested in ethics and morals, some will be less. Some people will be highly politicized, and others less so. So it's so hard, and I suppose it just comes down to what your priorities are, because the thing is, whenever Qatar is referenced as a potential buyer, or somebody from Qatar is, the standard response for anyone who is in support of that kind of bid is, well, there's a lot of whataboutery. So there'll be, what about America? The Glazers are from America. What about all the atrocities that they undergo? What about the UK? What about Britain? What about the British Empire, colonialism, things that ethical issues that are arising at the moment? What about the situation with Suella Braverman and sending refugees to Rwanda? All that kind of thing. And the only thing I'd say to that is correct. Call out things like that. Absolutely call it out. But what makes it different is if there's state involvement. That's the key. That's the key difference, because you can say what you like about the Glazers, and I think they are universally despised amongst the United fan base and anyone who cares about football or the national game or the international game, but they aren't, as far as I'm aware, connected to the US government. So anything that the US government undergo is not on them. And in the same way, if there's British owners, unless it involves the British government, you can't really bring that into it. It's when the state involvement, that's when it becomes an issue, because as soon as the state involvement, then you start looking at what the state represents and how that's connected. That's how that's directly connected to your club. And a good example is, like, say, Everton. Their owners Iranian, but it's not as if anyone's saying, "Oh, what about what's happening in Iran now?" Because he is an individual businessman. He's not connected to the state, and it's in the same way, if an individual businessman from wherever gets involved in any club, you judge them on their own merits and criticize or praise them on that. But as soon as there's any kind of state involvement, that's when it becomes different. That's when you start looking at things. And I know Nick. I've got a lot of respect for him, and I've spoken to him in the past. And there's a propensity to treat anyone who looks at what he does and sort of considers the moral or ethical implications of this kind of thing as some kind of killjoy, and somebody who's trying to ruin a positive thing. And that's simply not the case. All it is people who care about certain issues bringing them up, and there's nothing wrong with that.
I think to go back to a word that you used earlier is priorities. It depends on how important certain topics are or certain subjects are for you on a personal level, and therefore that's going to sort of drive the energy that you have going forward. For something that's not happened to me, but over these last, I don't know, few weeks or so, it happens all the time online, but I'm certainly seeing it a lot with this Qatar situation. It is people just throwing the words racist and xenophobic out when it has absolutely no part of that conversation. But people are throwing it at me, and as somebody who is a devout Muslim, as someone who's grown up and lived through that, does that piss you off that people can just sort of just associate it? Because I've been getting angry with people. I'm saying, look, don't accuse me of something, but it's not even slightly connected to that. And by you saying that now, you're taking power away from people who are correctly calling it out, because then at that point, you've diminished the value of calling it out. And it's a really weird thing that seems to be happening around this whole Qatari bid.
Completely, and it's absolutely disingenuous. And like you kind of intimate, it's beyond just disingenuous. It's dangerous, because what you're doing there is you're diluting the meaning of what it is to be racist, and for any legitimate racism, you are essentially diluting what that means. And again, it's never. I'm always suspicious of anyone who never cares about racism or women's rights or animal rights, or anything like that, if they never pipe up, unless it's to attack a particular people or situation or agenda. Because then it's less about them actually caring about something. It's more about them building up an argument that supports what they ultimately want. And this is what I mean about some people have got different priorities. So if you are the kind of person who cares about morality and what's happening in terms of, like, say, the LGBTQ plus community, or if you care about migrant workers and how much they're paid and how much they're treated and what their likelihood is to die doing a job, then you will really, really care about what's happening in this takeover. Now, I appreciate that there are a lot of people for who that's not important. I might disagree with that, but I appreciate that there's a spectrum of people really caring about it, and there's and on the other end, there's people who don't really care about that. What they care about is their lives their family. They work hard each week. They want to go to a match, or they want to watch the match on TV, and that's all they really care about. And they don't want that complicated by any other thinking. So, in terms of prospective bidders, they'll be looking at the Qatari bid, and they'll be saying, in terms of all the bids that are available and all the bids that we're aware of, they have got far and away the most money.
Yeah,
they will invest in the team to a maximum amount. They will invest in the stadium. They will invest. They will even invest in the sort of greater sort of area around the ground and around the club. So they're saying that's all positive to me. So why are you complicating it with other things? And to them, I'd say you make a decision. You make a decision about what's important to you, and it's not as if I or you are sat here preaching to them, saying, "What the hell are you doing? How dare you? You're scum," or whatever. That's not what's happening. All it is people. Some people sort of very passionately arguing that this is a bad thing because of all the ethical and moral implications, but other people, and I assume this is what you're getting criticism for, is simply just exploring it, simply just mentioning it, simply just giving people a platform to talk about it, and for the very fact that you're just saying this point of view exists, and therefore this is what people with that viewpoint are saying, you're getting sort of criticism for that and being called horrendous things purely for suggesting that there's a different point of view. And again, it's totally disingenuous, and it's unfair. And the thing is that what you'd assume is there's a load of moralists going around to fans who just care about football saying, how dare you, what are you doing, why are you getting excited? But from what I'm seeing, that is not the case. And in fact, it's the opposite, where they're kind of being left alone because people are just saying, well, they're going to behave like that. That's what they care about, whatever. But anyone who expresses an individual concern or an individual consideration for things like equal rights and the LGBTQ plus community, and people who come over from other countries and work in Qatar and aren't treated like they should, they're being labelled as virtue signalers, as these people who are just doing. A common thing which is so tedious is when people say, "Oh, you're just doing it for clicks, you're just doing it for popularity, you're just doing it for retweets," and it's not. Give people the respect and the at least allow them to think as an autonomous person and come to an opinion that's genuine, rather than just assuming that they are just doing it because they're sort of doing it for clicks, or they're doing it for sort of retweets or whatever. Because people, believe it or not, people do care about these things. And this whole thing about racism. So I've seen people say it's Islamophobic. I've seen people say it's racist. It's racist because they're Arab or Middle Eastern or whatever. I mean, the way I'd counter that is, first of all, none of the arguments that are placed at the door of these prospective owners are in any way illogical. Like if you follow the line of argument, you can see that there's a logic in what people are concerned about, and you can look at the Human Rights Watch, you can look at UN reports. All the information's there, so it's not made up. And secondly, this whole idea of racism. I'm a Muslim, and it looks very likely that the prospective owners of Manchester United are Muslim, and we will have Muslim owners. But does that mean that I've suddenly got some kinship, or I've got some connection to them? No, because they don't represent what I represent. And to me, if you ask me who I've got more in common with, whether it's some sheikh who's a billionaire and is benefiting from the exploitation of migrant workers, or it's the migrant worker who comes. Most migrant workers that go to places like Qatar are either from Africa or South Asia,
Yeah.
like me. So in another situation, in another timeline, it could be me going over there, because a lot of people go over from Bangladesh, India, Pakistan, and work there and are treated like second class citizens. So, firstly, like I don't understand the racism argument, because then how do the migrant workers fit in? Because they quite a lot of them are Muslim, and it doesn't matter if they're Muslim or not, but they are people who are being treated badly, of all races. But second of all, if there's also this idea that oh, Muslim people should be supportive of the Qatari bid, but if I was in Qatar, I would have less rights. If I went over from Pakistan as a worker, I would have less rights. So of course I care. So it's a load of bollocks, that argument about racism and xenophobia. It's the difference is, if people say, oh no, people from England are being treated differently, owners from America are being treated differently, it's all about a connection to the nation state, because we can pretty much, we can accept that pretty much every nation in the world has got things that they should be ashamed of, either historically or currently. But they are not connected to owning a football club. As soon as they are connected to owning a football club, then it becomes a consideration for football fans. And the thing is, I go back to this thing of you, if you cannot care, it's totally up to you whether you care or not. Anyone watching this could kind of think, either I massively do care, or I don't care. And if you don't care and you just care about Manchester United having loads of money and potentially being able to sign whoever they want and all that business, by all means be excited. But other people won't be excited, or at least they will temper their excitement. And again, what I would love to say is that I am so virtuous as an individual that if somebody that I don't necessarily agree with morally or ethically took ownership of my football club, I would walk away. I would stop supporting them, because football is not that important in the grand scheme of things, and that would be that. But I can't honestly say that. And again, this is where I potentially become a hypocrite, because I find that impossible to do. And again, it goes back to this thing of what is football and what does it matter, and again, this idea of what is the culture of any club. And the way I see it, and again, this might well be hypocrisy. This might well be moral gymnastics. But I don't see what right anyone has of taking over my football club and essentially taking it away from me and taking it away from the community that it belongs to, philosophically and emotionally, which is the fans. So
I think that's pretty much the crux of the difficulty there, is that for quite a few United fans, they do feel like that. The idea of a Qatari led, as you say, there's a degree of separation between the actual state and whether it's a private actual investment. But do you understand those fans? Do you understand that standpoint that it shouldn't go to Sheikh Jassim on those grounds? Because I don't know whether it's like, because it's not an age thing. Because there's lads that I go to games with when I can get to a game, and some of them are like stoutly against a Qatari takeover. And I presume, and I'm going to guess a lot of that is based on everything that's happened since 2008, because it's all been enabled by that. And the thing that pisses me off about this whole thing is this: Man United is staring in the face of consequences of what's happened since 2008. Actually, earlier than that, with the Roman Abramovich in Chelsea. The Premier League has created the circumstances where this exists. They allowed the Glazers to come in when they shouldn't have allowed them to come in. We could have had a new stadium instead of $1 billion being spent on interest anyway, and it wouldn't have been a conversation. But hey, here we are. Do you think that when it comes to younger United fans, I was thinking about this the other day, like younger United fans of a certain age, they've never seen us win the Premier League. They've never seen us win the Champions League. And they've grown up in a culture of football where, and it is Moneyball. It is Moneyball now. That is what it is. So this idea of a Qatar coming in, of the Sheikh coming in, just throwing cash in, hell yeah, give me that. And that's how you succeed. Well, that's not how you win the Champions League. You're right in the idea that you can't just, one person can never truly represent all Manchester United fans. There's too many different factions is the wrong word because that makes it sound like military. It's not military. It's not political. It's more of a community. And that's goes back to the sort of point I'm making about there, the culture of Manchester United. Do you think that some of that is lost if it goes to a Qatari backed takeover? Or do you think that would be an unfair thing to say?
I mean, I go back to that thing of what philosophically is a football club and what is the most important part of it. And I think if lockdown taught us anything, and it was terrible in so many ways, so many people lost people they loved, and so many people were affected both emotionally and health wise and everything. But if we just look at football in isolation, it was so sterile, and it felt so pointless. And watching those games on TV in front of empty stands, and you could hear players talking to each other and the manager sort of shouting.
Grim.
It made you realize that fundamentally, like, the sport does not count. Like, it does not matter. It is literally just a physical activity that involves kicking a ball about, and somebody wins and somebody loses. That's what football is without anything else. What makes it special? What makes football this incredible thing that can give you the greatest of happiness and like and can sort of like ruin your week or your weekend, and can even sort of give you solace in the darkest of moments just because it's a bit of a release, is that you're doing it with other people. You're experiencing it with other people. This fans around you. If you're lucky enough to live near a football team, or are able to travel to the likes of Old Trafford or Anfield or the Emirates or whatever, you experience that on a very sort of physical basis, in terms of like you are around fans, you feel like you're part of a community, you're seeing people, you're seeing friends and familiar faces before games and after games, you're discussing the game afterwards, even online. You've talked about your community. That's got a value as well of like that's a strange thing about rivalry in football is that you might hate Liverpool, you might hate Arsenal or City or whatever, but these are symbiotic relationships that need each other. You need that sort of like rivalry. That's what makes it amazing. That's what makes it exciting. There's no point in football if you've not got something to push against and something to compare to and somebody to take the piss out of. Like, that is the essence of football. And as soon as all that is lost, you've got what you had during lockdown, which was something that was sterile and ultimately pointless. And so going back to this idea of culture, I'm sure whoever takes over will be smart enough to do certain things that will appease a lot of fans, or at least make a lot of them happy in a lot of ways. So, for instance, guaranteed, whoever takes over United, one of the first things they're going to do is put football club back on the badge, because
they are an idiot if they don't.
Yeah,
it's the easiest win.
Yeah, it's such an easy win, and there's other things they can do, and that will definitely happen. So, in that respect, on a purely football level, that could be seen as like, oh, that's good for the culture. But it comes down to what you care about, what you are interested in, and like I said, if we look at sort of three broad options, you can either walk away because assume sort of an ownership comes in that divides opinion, and it's an ownership that people have got issues with. You can either walk away, that's it, I'm not a Manchester United fan anymore. It was good while it lasted, but I'm going to go off and whatever. I'm not interested. A second option is to essentially become cheerleaders for the ownership and go all in. And if anyone criticizes, say it's a Qatari ownership, if anyone criticizes Qatar, you're going to be there protecting them, being a human shield for them. Anyone mentions human rights or anyone mentions the rights of people to have any kind of lifestyle that they so wish, you will be there banging the sort of Qatari drum, arguing for the state, arguing for whatever they believe in. And then there's a middle option where you still support the club because you kind of think, why the fuck should I walk away from something I love and has given me some of the best moments of my life and has given me some of my best friends in the whole world. But I will still refuse to become a cheerleader for the ownership. And if anything, I will sort of continue to point out what I have got issues with and raise awareness about. And it's this thing of like, this isn't the first time it's happened, unfortunately. Like there's been City, there's been Newcastle, there's been PSG. I know City fans and I know Newcastle fans that, of course, they enjoy successes that they have on the pitch, but that doesn't mean that they stop caring about things they believe in. So they will point out stuff that their ownership and the states associated with them are doing wrong, and they will passionately argue against it, and they will passionately argue for things like LGBTQ plus rights and the rights of women and migrant workers' rights. They will continue to do that while supporting their club on the pitch. And it sounds as if it's a situation where you're essentially having your cake and eating it, in that you enjoy the success on the pitch, but also pointing that out. But I think that's in an era of sports washing, that is a powerful thing to have. Suddenly, like previous to being interested in buying Manchester United, would anyone involved in the Qatari state care about what you or I thought about their human rights issues or whatever? No, because who are we? As soon as they get involved in our football club and people are listening to what we've got to say about their ownership, about what we think of them, suddenly we are really powerful stakeholders because our voice can be heard, and we can say things that do matter and do get heard. So I would like, I mean, and I can't tell anyone how to behave. Whether you're giddy with excitement and don't care about anything, fair enough, you do you. Whether you walk away from the club and can never set foot in Old Trafford, good for you. Like I for good or for bad, I sort of struggle with both of those. So what I try and do is stick to my guns in terms of what I believe in, what I believe is wrong with what's happening in the world, and point that out repeatedly. But at the same time, like I hate to say it, well, I don't know if I hate to say it, but like I will still be a United fan. I can't stop being a United fan. And
no, it's not as easy as that.
No, and we go back to sort of like I've written a whole fucking book about what Manchester United meant to me growing up, and that wasn't like that's it's not going to make me rich or anything. That book, but it's a sentiment that I wanted to share. It's a sentiment that's important to me, of in a world where people are horrendous to people of different races, and there's loads of Islamophobia in so many different ways around the world. I can say I'm a United fan, or I can say I'm a football fan, and in a small but important way, that can break through all differences, and it just becomes, you are another Red or you are another United fan, and that's what it's meant to me growing up. So I'm not willing to give that up because it's so important to me. Like it's fundamentally part of who I am.
If I could ask you, you don't have to answer if you don't want to, But do you have a preference on who you would prefer to become Manchester United's new owners?
No, what I will, because again, this is the thing. I think in the modern era of social media and just media in general, there is the desire and the natural human sort of instinct to find the solution. You want there to be a solution. You want there to be sort of a perfect ending, but it's not like that. What Manchester United fans need, or what any football fans of any club need to understand, or whether you care to understand this or not, is that we can make our voices heard. We can say what we say, and we can say how we feel. Ultimately, people can pay attention to us, or they don't. The sale will still go through to whoever it'll go through. It's not as if the Glazers are listening to us now and are going to think, that's a good point that chap on that show made. I will take that into account when I decide who to sell to. They won't. It will go to whichever buyer makes more sense to them. So in a sense, we've got the luxury of being able to form an opinion without having a direct sort of saying what does actually happen. So there's that. There's almost a virtue in not being able to change things, because you can just be perfectly honest and perfectly open about what you feel. So in a sense, we've got no control about who's going to take ownership. But what I would say is we have spent the last we've spent over much last 16 or 17 years fighting against the ownership.
Yeah,
we are used to that. That is something that we've experienced, we've adopted. Some people are so young that that's all they've ever known.
Yeah.
To love the team. It's love United, hate Glazer. You see it everywhere, and that is now what we're used to doing. So my feeling is, why can't we continue to do that? Why can't we continue to love the club, and if not hate the new owners, whoever they may be, at least be skeptical, at least hold them to account. Don't just sort of become their fanboys just because there's the chance of getting fucking Mbappe or whatever. Like, it's that I'm kind of dismayed that people who are over the age of 16 feel that way. It's so in terms of, so I would love to say to you now, I'm not keen on state ownership from Qatar for all these moral and ethical reasons. So therefore, I am pro Ratcliffe, or I am pro Elliot. No, because they are terrible in different ways. Yeah. Elliot's just the Elliot sort of bid just seems to be
red flags everywhere. That bid,
exactly. It's just another form of debt. It's another form of just people who don't care about football and are looking to make a quick buck. Ratcliffe, there's all sorts of issues I've got with him personally in terms of being a tax exile, being one of the sort of biggest Tory donors around, arguing for Brexit, and whilst being based abroad, so it didn't affect him. So, yeah. So there's all sorts of issues I've got about him as well. So I would love to say to you, I don't like that bid, so therefore I'm all behind this bid. No, everything, all the bids seem either dubious or morally questionable in different ways. Even like we were talking before we went on air of the new guy from Finland, whatever he's called.
I've forgotten his name already. It doesn't even matter.
I know. So, but like he seems like an absolute chance. So the way he's taking it on face value, that United have got like a billion sort of fans worldwide just because the Manchester United blurb says that, and like he's coming out with these comments of like, oh, if you all give like $6 each, you can own half the club. That's like me saying, if each of my sort of social media followers give me £100, I'll retire.
No, if everybody in the world buys your book, you'd be like supreme leader.
Exactly. It's such a nonsense. So everyone involved, every potential owner has got red flags. Every potential owner has got things that concern me. And at the very least, we should have a healthy skepticism for any owner that comes in, even if somebody came in and said, right, I'm a billionaire, what I'm going to do is I'll buy the club and you can just own it, it's yours, I'm giving it away for free. Even then we think, well, what's your angle, how is this going to work, who's going to be sort of in charge of the club? So essentially what I'm saying is, don't look for the perfect solution. You've got no control over who's going to own the club. You haven't. You can make your voice heard, but you've got no control. Whoever takes over, you can love the club. You can love the team, and you can want the best for the team on the pitch. But continue to argue and fight and criticize the ownership if they deserve that. And the fact we've been doing it for the last X many years, continue to do it.
I'll be honest, I've never thought about it from that point of view, but if you think about it, how many fans from probably just the 92, how many fans in football clubs like their owners?
Well, that's it.
Probably very few. And something you kind of got me thinking about there to sort of wrap it up. Opinions, right? Everyone's got an opinion. You might disagree with it, but it's an opinion. You can't tell someone it's wrong. It's the concept of an opinion. It's almost like you can put priorities in the same sort of category as that. Somebody might have a different priority to you, but it doesn't mean that it's wrong. And I'll be completely honest, when this all really properly started, right back where in November when the statement went out and the idea of Dubai came out, and I was like, oh shit. And that's why I spoke to Nick. I was like, shit. I didn't ever think I'd be in this position as a United fan. Got to speak about it. And I had that interview. And I saw Jim Ratcliffe as sort of, I called him the Disney owner. He's a man born 10 miles from the Old Trafford. There we go. He's seen a goal. This is it. This is the perfect new owner. And as the sort of stories progressed over the last few months, it's obvious to me that my priority is that Manchester United become debt-free again. I've seen that as the straitjacket for progress. And that's been the thing that's held us back. So clearly, that's probably my driver for who I think is the best new owner. And I'm not saying that my opinion's completely changed on Jim Ratcliffe and Ineos, but I've certainly got more concerns about it. You mentioned there about him voting Brexit, being out of the UK, being a tax exile. That's your own formed opinion of Jim Ratcliffe and your personal view of that. It's such a minefield, this situation. I suppose that's what happens when you sell a club of the size of Manchester United. We've been crap for, like, let's be honest, like 10 years, and we're still probably right there in the top three. Real Madrid, Barcelona, and United are still the three biggest clubs in the world. No amount of failures that we've had over these last 10 years is going to take away from that, and that's why people are so passionate about it. I think the responsibility that I've definitely got a responsibility with this platform. I've felt that more in this last probably 6 months than I ever have, because I can see that people are listening to what I'm saying. If I was to start spouting some crazy right-wing nonsense, then I imagine people would start getting angry. But no one really has got too much to say about me because I'm not particularly abrasive. I try to be balanced, and I'm trying to be balanced with this, and that's why we're having a conversation. That's why I spoke with Nick before, because you have to just open it up. That's basically what you have to do. You have to open every door and leave them all open, so people can just go in and go, okay, right, I'll take that point of view. I'll take that on board. Go somewhere else. Okay, I'll listen to that. And they can form their own opinions. There is not a right or wrong answer. Ultimately, I want what is best for Manchester United in the scope of the Premier League, because of what the Premier League has allowed. I don't know whether it's possible to do without the sort of money that a Qatari bid could bring by comparison of what Ineos does. And this idea that I know that they're going to pay off the debt and it's going to go onto Ineos's books. But then what happens when they want to rebuild Old Trafford and they need another $1.5 billion? Where are they going to get that from? They're probably going to refinance that as well. And all of a sudden, their debt's looking in excess of $2 billion. Of course, that's going to have some sort of indirect impact on Manchester United. But, mate, Noz, thank you so much for coming on today, man. Anybody, by the way, who wants to read the book, Inshallah United, I'm going to leave a link in the description. And if you do become a bestseller and everyone in the world does buy it, can I be like your president? Like, you can be supreme leader, I'll be president. That's fine.
Yeah. I mean, the last thing I'd leave with is that I really feel for football fans that are being asked to make these grand sort of decisions about geopolitics, because that's not what we're in it for. And if anything, I feel sorry for people who just want to love football, just want to love the club, and they're now under more scrutiny than world leaders. Like because it's Manchester United and because it's sexy and because it's football and people want to talk about it, fans are being asked to have an opinion on stuff that's all to do with morals and ethics and as I said, geopolitics, and yet political leaders and our government are under less scrutiny from it in so many ways, and that's wrong. So yeah, it's just there's no right answer, and what I'd say is whoever takes over, just have a bit of scrutiny, bit of critical thinking. That's all.
And just don't be a dick.
Yeah.
It's a simple rule of life I try and have. But mate, I really appreciate you coming on. As I said, the link's in the description. Anybody who wants to read it, I'm going to read more of it. You got Bob Mortimer on the front as well. I love Bob. I love that fishing series he does with Paul Whitehouse. That is one of my favorite things. That is my Sunday afternoon jobby. But mate, thank you so much for your time. I wish you the best of luck with the book. And yeah, I hope if you have enjoyed it, drop a like on the video.
Nice one.
Take it easy, dude.